Now that I'm in high school, I've got opinions about all sorts of things. Religion, politics, to name a few. Plus, I got a job at the Dairy Queen, so I've also got income. And none of them are any of your business. There's a set of personal information about students and their families, which is protected by a law called Utah FERPA, which was originally passed in 1994. The purpose of this law is to protect students from having to disclose personal information about themselves and their families that doesn't pertain to their education. It's called boundaries, Janet. The law talks a lot about psychological examinations, treatments, and surveys, but what it really boils down to is you shouldn't be asking students to reveal certain information about themselves or their families. As an educator, you're in a position of power and authority, and a student might feel compelled to answer certain personal questions about themselves if you ask. So let's go over a list of what you're not supposed to ask. Political affiliations or philosophies, mental or psychological problems, sexual behavior, orientation, or attitudes, illegal, antisocial, self-incriminating, or demeaning behavior, critical appraisals of individuals with whom they have close family relationships, religious affiliations or beliefs, privileged relationships, and that could be with lawyers, medical personnel, ministers, and income except as required by law. Now keep in mind, you're allowed to talk about these topics, especially if it's part of your curriculum. I know we had the political science teachers worried there for a minute. But there's a big difference between talking about political parties and asking your students who their parents voted for, or what political party they belong to. Also, there's nothing in the law that stops students from spontaneously expressing any of these things about themselves. But if you start prying and trying to get more information out of them, you could get into trouble. As with most privacy law, if you get written parental consent, you may solicit this information from students. But you generally have to give parents 2 weeks notice before collecting the information. But it can be shorter if parents agree to waive this 2-week period. And in the case of a survey, you'll need to provide an actual copy for parents to review. Also know that written permission is generally going to have to be on a case-by-case basis. It shouldn't be a blanket permission to cover a broad range of topics. And it shouldn't last the duration of the school year, unless that's negotiated with the parents. Also, in the case of a health and safety emergency where you believe the student is going to harm themselves or others, put the life of the student first. But know that it's okay to get this information from a student without written parental consent if it's in line with your crisis management policy. Your school should have a crisis management policy that's part of a separate training. But you will have to notify parents of the discussion you had after the fact. Anyway, I'd love to say more, but I gotta practice for Battle of the Bands. 1, 2.